Hey there, everybody. I'm Adam Hines.
Hello, yeah, I'm Sean Krankel, and we are the co-founders of Night School. And along with the rest of our team, who are now kind of spread out all over the planet, we are the folks who have made OXENFREE, as well as some other games. We made After Party and Next Stop Nowhere most recently. Yeah, we are. I hope you can bear with us because we may have some internet issues today, but we're super excited to kick off our first community Q&A in celebration of OXENFREE's 5-year anniversary, which still, every time Adam and I are saying this, it sounds insanely surreal because it feels like maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, I genuinely cannot believe it. It's very weird. Yeah, so thanks to everybody who submitted a question. There were a ton that we sifted through over the last couple of days, and we wish we could answer all of them. We're going to try and get through as many as possible. We've got a little bit less than an hour. So we picked a few of our favorite questions. And actually, I guess for the rest of the intro, yeah, Adam and I, for those of you guys that don't know, we're the founders of Night School. We are cousins. We are co-creative directors on OXENFREE and the other stuff we've done. And Adam is the lead writer of the studio and wrote that game and basically everything else. So here we go.
The first question.
Let's see some questions.
What led you guys to the final art style the game has? Did you guys start the development process with it already in mind, or did it evolve as you made the game? Also, what inspired this conversation system? Cool. Sean, if you want to take the art, I'll take conversation.
That sounds good. Yeah. So the art was really driven by two things. One, it was our lead artist, Heather Gross, was somebody who already had a really kind of beautiful painterly approach to her character designs and her world designs. And we thought it would be cool to actually lean into the fact that this was soft and almost like feature animation looking, but for a very scary game, so that when things do get scary, it's all the more off-putting. So that general approach was really just leaning into the exciting kind of vibe that Heather had already created. She's also from the Pacific Northwest. She spent a lot of time in trees, around trees, climbing trees. You're not in trees, among trees. So she definitely had a very particular, authentic vibe for the Pacific Northwest. And then I think the other thing with the art style, part two, I would say, is that it was just driven by our camera distance and the mechanics that we had. We really wanted to have a game that made the characters that you were playing as or that you were interacting with all fit into a big, long, extreme long shot and be framed in a really kind of cinematic way, which meant that we would pull the camera way back, that we would have color and character design choices that would read on something that was that distant, and that could also have our UI sit on top of it. So think about the dialogue bubbles and any of the portal opening or any of the other interactions in the world really just benefited from that look and feel. So we wanted to really merge the art and the UI in a way that felt kind of seamless.
Yeah. And yeah, for the conversation system, our initial kind of thoughts of what the game would really be about or how it would feel was all about making a game where you could have a very naturalistic, free-flowing dialogue with characters, but not ever strip control away from you at the same time. Meaning that we really wanted you to be able to quote unquote walk and talk, which is just like our whole goal, the entire process of really making the game, and everything kind of really wanted, and we wanted to support that and have that be kind of the single hyper shots of like this is what we're going to do, like best in class of this game, and everything else can kind of be ornamentation with that. So the conversation system, I mean, it really started because I had worked at a couple different game studios, and the last one that I was at before we founded Night School was Telltale. And Telltale had a really rich pedigree from a bunch of people who worked there from the classic LucasArts games, where it has that history of having a lot of dialogue options, but of course you would always kind of walk up and have your conversation and leave and kind of do the puzzles or the gameplay that was kind of apart from that. What Telltale did that was great was they added the timer, which really kind of made you feel this anxious kind of pressure to make sure that you're kind of speaking in the normal cadence and rhythm of what a normal conversation would actually be like. And we really loved that and kind of latched onto that. Just wanted to expand on that and let you do anything that the player would kind of naturally want to do at that time in the game and in that scene. So if you want to kind of click on other interactables or change the topic, we would really want to let you do that. So yeah, it was tricky. It was fun. It was a big task to make sure that there were lots of ins and outs of how the conversation could work. You could always interrupt, and just making sure that it always felt really real. So yeah.
Good question. Thank you. We're hoping another question appears soon. Yeah, okay. There we go. Olivia De Amicis, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, wants to know, so both OXENFREE and Afterparty are masterpieces that are seemingly character-driven. Thank you. What was the process like when building the personalities and backstories of such cool characters, and which are your favorites? Adam, you wrote them.
Yeah. So the process of building, these personalities and backstories, I would say that it kind of goes in a certain order where we really try to make sure that the story doesn't overwhelm the gameplay, that the game mechanics also don't overwhelm the story, meaning that one feels like, you know, we're putting too much kind of emphasis or precedence on that at the failures or faults of any other kind of system around that. So what that means is that the characters hopefully serve both as functions within the game, meaning it's important that we have a character who's the bad guy because the plot really demands that, or the gameplay really requires that there be someone who's really anti-you, or there needs to be, in the case of Afterparty, two kind of diametrically opposed characters in terms of personality, so that when you switch back and forth and you're playing the game, you feel like there's a good reason why you're not playing as one character in a certain scene, or you are playing as the other one. So those kind of things kind of at least develop the bedrock and the foundation of the characters in terms of what their like core belief systems are and what their wants are and these desires and like what's their obstacle that they need to overcome in the plot. So then from there, though, then we can kind of start to get into the more kind of specifics of exactly how those kind of come out within the arc, and really get to kind of deep dive into what the themes are and how they play into what these characters want and need and are scared of. So yeah, so it's a fun process. It definitely involves the whole team, and how they look and how they talk also really shapes that. And then at least for my personal favorites, from OXENFREE, I mean, it's definitely the default like Ryu and Street Fighter answer, but Alex, you know, she's great. She's hard not to be your favorite. You're kind of able to tailor make her how you would want her to act as you play the game. I really love Clarissa too, and OXENFREE, and how she definitely starts out as like the teen bad guy who's going to kind of push you around, but then at the end she has a bit more to her there, and you get to see exactly why she's a certain way. And Afterparty, I love Wormhorn. I'm a big Wormhorn fan. I love Aaron playing that character too, and how just kind of positive and zany she is, and how she can kind of break the fourth wall. But that was a ton of fun to write, is when Wormhorn's kind of able to directly talk to you. So
it's cheating. You can't give Aaron all the points, man.
I know.
Aaron Yvette, who plays Alex in OXENFREE, and then Wormhorn in Afterparty. I just to kind of piggyback on that, I think on the Afterparty front, I would agree. Wormhorn, I think, is my favorite, especially just because she embodies so much of the spirit of the whole game in terms of like, we're in hell, we're having our choices thrown back in our face. No matter what we do, we're kind of going to be doing the wrong thing a bit here and there. It's a character that is, was inspired by the Beetlejuices of the world. So I think, I personally love that character. And then OXENFREE, it's probably Ren. We were just talking about this the other day, how surprised we were that like half of the community can't stand Ren and half adores Ren. I personally thought everybody was just going to love Ren. So when the game came out and people were like, kill that guy, it was very, very surprising. But yeah, I think that in terms of the mechanics that we have in the game, having somebody like Ren that is this awkward friend that is with you at all times is very close to representing what it's like to be out with friends that you have known for a really long time, but at the same time are like dreading having to save their ass all the time. So yeah, thanks for writing all of them, Adam.
Anytime.
Sarah asks, this is a good, big, juicy one. Okay, so OXENFREE covers a wide variety of themes, but the seemingly most central is grief and how varied its causes and effects are on different people. For example, Alex and Clarissa are both still struggling with Michael's death. Michael is the character, Alex's brother from OXENFREE. While Ren and Jonas are both anxious about big changes in their lives, grieving what once was. What was the mindset behind each character and their struggles? What is their defining struggle, or how did that influence them, either from a narrative or developmental view? Let me take the like super broad strokes version, and then you give the more intelligent, nuanced answer. I think that this kind of piggybacks on what Adam was talking about earlier, where the cast in each of these, in all of our games, but in OXENFREE as the first one, really has to kind of brush up against both the protagonist's challenges, but also what the player might want to interact, or an interesting way to put the player in the shoes of somebody who has others around them with competing goals, challenges, or issues in their life. And so, in the case of the OXENFREE cast, the fact that we were able to open the game on something that had meaningfully impacted some of these characters, like Alex and Clarissa, and only tangentially had impacted these others, made it so that there was already this this air of tension around everybody, and the way that the player had to interact with it was a little bit more nuanced than just like, hey, let's go party. It was like, oh man, this is, we're on the recent anniversary of the hero's brother's death. We're meeting up with the girlfriend who's already being mean to us right from the jump, and we don't really understand why. And yeah, we have that more kind of standard meeting some new characters like Jonas that night issue going on. And so I think just from a like, how can we create lots and lots of cases of tension, but also moments of levity inside of that tension, the cast is the best way for us to do that, more than even the circumstances that are happening that night. Because you are thinking in the back of your head, what does this other person think of me right now? Do they hate me? Are they stressed about me? Are they going to be my enemy? Or is this just all in my head, like we all deal with in life? Am I just telling myself stories? And so I think, on OXENFREE in particular, I think we are still really proud of the fact that every one of these characters is either dealing with some very big grief or something that is to come. But Adam, I don't know, like one of the things before I stop blabbing is that we have internally called the game a grief simulator at times. So it's funny that this specific question was phrased that way, because it's not the most back of the box marketing happy, but it is it is a grief simulator. Adam, I don't know if you want to take a crack at that.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, a lot of writers have said you just have to make sure every character wants something, even if it's just a glass of water. And it's really true. Every character that is in a story should want something, even if it's just as simple as I just want to go to bed, just to give them something to kind of bounce off. For OXENFREE, it was very nice for the story to have that kind of signal or single defining characteristic of all the characters, and that they're all missing a character that's not there, that you're only going to kind of hear about through these brief scenes, and they'll just kind of talking about him. So it was great just to have that as the wrapper for what kind of every conversation you can kind of have under the surface of it. But yeah, so it was good to have.
This is what I'm saying with my internet jacked up. I think you went out a bit at the end.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying basically about it was nice having the entire cast have that single thing that they could all kind of want to talk about and have their own feelings about, which is the death of Michael and the loss of Alex's brother. So yeah, so that for us at least, yeah, really helped kind of make it that grief simulator, which Sean, yeah, says that we really kind of call it internally. But yeah.
The grief simulator. Let's see another question. Dapple Apple asks, were there any characters that you made in the beginning but didn't make it to the final game? I don't think there were, Adam. Were there? Was there anybody?
I mean, the only thing, yeah, the short answer is no, that we didn't come up with like Billy Bob and he was going to be the truck driver. He ended up getting cut for a time, even though we should. Now that I say it out loud, there should have been that character in this game. But we had talked about earlier making the party a much bigger thing. Like it was going to be like, oh, the entire like junior class goes to the island. There we're going to get 80 to 100 kids out there, and we're like, yeah, that's perfect for a conversation game because you know there's a million different things to talk about. But every single kind of concern that had popped up about that, like what do you do with that massive cast when things start to go wrong? Like how does that fit the tone? Do we have time to make that? Like what's the plausible logic of how all of that would work? We really then came up with the idea that the whole class was supposed to go there, but they ended up not because of just individual things. So they had that conversation at the beginning about how so-and-so got sick, so-and-so got grounded, a bunch of kids just couldn't make it out. So it helps the tone, and I can't imagine this game really in any other way now. But that was really the only thing that we planned for, that we didn't do in terms of the cast.
Tan asks, hi, Sean and Adam, who are your favorite characters and why? Well, we accidentally partially answered that earlier, but maybe we could talk about our favorite characters in other fiction. I'm a big fan of Darth Vader. No, yeah, so favorite characters. I mean, I actually, just to give Erin Yvette more props, I would definitely say, yeah, that Alex, in terms of the way that you wrote her and the way that Erin's performance came through, is still probably the best just all around character that we've had, because she really, Alex, I think gets talked about as if it is somebody else's Alex. Like when you play the game, it's your Alex. And that was what we always wanted to happen. And the fact that it has resonated that way and that people have gone, this is me and I'm treating Alex as a personality test for myself, I think is a testament to a character that is both, really likable, but also has a lot of unique challenges. Like it's not like that character is this blank slate at all. Like Alex is intelligent and witty and can be, shooting daggers at people if you want her to, or the other way around. So yeah, I know this is cheating, but Alex, I still would go back also and say Alex. What about you, Adam?
Me too. Yeah, it's still Alex and Clarissa. I think I like all the characters for their own, reasons. No one really talks about poor Quiet and Nona, but yeah, they all have their positives.
Owen asks, how did the closet in the cave correlate to the loop in the story? Yes. We were just talking about this.
Yeah. So the closet, is there for one kind of, it's like two medium reasons and one kind of hidden one. The two reasons, one, it was purely really at the beginning just to establish an off-putting tone that you hopefully wouldn't even know why you're creeped out, but you just feel a little creeped out. And it's just the idea of putting very common, ordinary items in places where they really don't belong, with no logical explanation of how they could get there. So we just wanted some kind of a hint that things are able to kind of show up in this cave on this island potentially, where they're not supposed to be. So that later on, when you start to tune into the portals and have things kind of be teleporting around, and you're seeing chairs in weird places and other objects from the past kind of blending and blurring into our timeline. That when you think back, you're like, oh wow, I was seeing signs and hints of this even from the very start before I'd even tuned into anything. And then also the hint that like in that cave is basically where the source of everything is. So it's like even when someone necessarily maybe hadn't even tuned in, there's still evidence of oddness and weirdness there. And then the other hidden reason is that, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who has played, but if you kind of really dig as deep as you can into the story and find all the collectibles that you can, there's another kind of backstory there that just ties into what a main character is kind of going through in the past. And it's the armor there is a bit of a hint at an event that had happened in the cave then. So it's there for a couple of reasons though.
With like a good long pause, long awkward pause. All right, Luigi Kim asks if you could go back in time, haha, we see you, and change anything about the game or its story, what would you change? I think so. To Adam's point earlier, it's tough now to look back and want to change too much of it. I think within the first 6 months of us releasing it, we wanted to change a lot of it. We were just seeing the warts that we were aware of that related to either different types of interactions in the world or animations or, you know, bugs are getting fixed. But the further we've gotten away from it, I don't know, the fact that it's been a few years, I really, having just looked at it again recently and played it, I really feel like there's not a lot that I would hope for us to go back and change. There were, I think there were a lot of features that ended up falling by the wayside, or the types of interactions that we had were different. Without spoiling anything, there was a different ending that was way more bombastic and insane, and that would have sent us into the timelines with the sunken briefly and done some other kind of crazy stuff. And then we just kept asking ourselves, like, do those other larger, crazier concepts make sense in this game? Do they bolster the story? Do they help tell Alex's version of this? And do they do it in a way that is impactful? And I think that, the cuts that we made were the right ones. Yeah, I don't know. Adam, is there anything you'd want to change now?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like, the further away you get from something that you made, it just becomes kind of solidified in stone. That's kind of what it is and what it should be. There's definitely people that have an impetus and an impulse to, like, if they have the opportunity to put out the remastered edition or the anniversary edition, they'll make tweaks and change things. And there's lots of like tiny little microscopic lines that I might want to change, or certain beats or things that I would want to add in. But yeah, it all kind of just gets definitely washed away by just the fact that OXENFREE is OXENFREE. It is what it is now. It's something that we're very proud of, and we love the community that's kind of grown around it. And after a certain point, when something gets released, it's kind of out of your hands at that point. It's out of your control. Everyone's going to have their own individual relationship with it, and to alter that is almost a betrayal for the people who fell in love with the version that they had. So yeah, I definitely, even if I could, wouldn't want to change anything. And nothing comes to mind that I would really even have a strong desire to.
Damien asks, how much did Jonas change as a character throughout development and the writing process? That's a great question.
That is.
And so specific. That's great.
Yeah. I'll take a stab at what I remember first. So for Jonas, we really wanted initially, at least my recollection is, we wanted a character that was kind of couched in mystery. He had like a backstory to him that that the kids who lived in Kamina didn't know exactly where he was coming from, or they had some hints that like he might have been to jail, or he might have beat up a guy, or he might have had a knife in school. There was just going to be something to his backstory that we wanted to make the characters a bit hesitant to become like too good of a friends with him, or at least a reason for them to have their guard up. And that's mostly to Sean's earlier point about just making sure that those interactions, at least early, felt like there was a lot of friction and a lot of tension, and we just had to kind of generate that by making these scenarios. So for Jonas, that was kind of his big leading thing, was that we just wanted him to be someone who felt dangerous to the kids. And then over time, you would find out, of course, that he would hopefully you think he's a genuinely good guy who wants to help. He's just a normal teenager. So that was kind of his big thing, and of course it changed a bit. And that, at least that focus on that, got, at least in my mind, deflated in a good way. Just so that's not like this big thing that's hanging over your head of like, what did this guy do? Should I be trusting him? Should I not be trusting him? Because we wanted you to be able to kind of fully trust him right off the bat, and not have that in the back of your head that he's going to do something bad or be weird or anything. So we kind of flattened that a bit and made him more kind of like Alex in a way, just very wistful for what he had, a bit unsure about this new family dynamic he's coming into, and just about them really kind of boxing with each other in a way to just kind of figure out who they are. Are they going to like each other, him and Alex? Are they going to be friends? Or are they going to consider each other genuinely brother and sister by the end? But we still like that beat in there of him having something that the characters kind of talked about earlier, just so that Jonas has that beat in Fort Milner. Again, not to spoil anything, but he just kind of unpacks a bit about why he's a little guarded with other people, and kind of explains just a bit about his history and his family life that kind of brought him here. So that part remained as a nice little three-dimensional piece to him. But yeah, we didn't want to make him just like the bad guy from the wrong side of the tracks anymore as much.
Yeah, I think our early marker for him, if I remember correctly, is the River Phoenix character in Stand By Me. Like, and you may have just said that. I apologize. I got like 5 texts and I was like, "What's this?" Okay. Yeah, the that vibe of somebody that could both have lived a more dangerous, mysterious life than us in the past, but somebody who's not so much further along in life that they're like going to be our shaman through some crazy events this evening. And so I think all the choices, like you just mentioned, Adam, to kind of pull back on that and make him in terms of danger and mystery, just as mysterious as Alex, meant that in turn, he would be really inquisitive about her, and not just like, I've seen it all, I've done it all. And it's more like they can both kind of feel each other out, and that Alex over the course of the night can in turn feel extremely competent, and more competent than even Jonas in handling a lot of this, as opposed to if we were going in with a trained Navy SEAL to the events of the night, it would be maybe a little bit less scary. So a lot of changes happened for Jonas over the early days of the project.
Yeah.
You take this one.
Ellison asks, "Hey, settle a bed for me, would you? See a man about a dog, saw the man but not the dog. What's up with that? Aliens? I bet it's aliens. It's aliens. I mean, I can confirm officially it's a whole DLC you can unlock with aliens. No, unfortunately, it's not aliens. It's nothing that cool. What it is with it's an old expression from, I think, the early 19th century in Britain that kind of made its way into the American military, particularly in World War I and World War II. It started out as just an idiom to basically express that you just have something to do and you can't tell the person what it is you're going to do. So it's just something in secret that you have to go do. And then it turned into, in the military in World War I, basically your way of saying, I have to go talk to my higher ups about something you can't know. And then in World War II, it got even drilled down more into like, basically I have a secret mission and you can't know about it. I got to go participate. So that's why it's kind of written on the wall, is that OXENFREE, the impetus for everything that's going wrong is that a very, very highly classified thing went horribly wrong. And the people on the submarine that would know about it, that's the type of thing that they would have been saying to the people on the base as they worked on this stuff. So that's where that comes from. Unfortunately, it's not in Boolean time.
But little spoiler alert, not spoiler, little behind the scenes, I don't even know what I'm trying to say right now, that we did talk about the sunken being aliens very early on, very, very, very early. We pivoted away from that, but there was a chance it could have turned into an alien thing.
That's true.
Okay, let's do another question. Daniel asks, hello, I'd like to ask, were any of the original OXENFREE cast written to be or implied to be LGBT? I've always felt Alex's comment about a crab wife led to an easy assumption about her possibly being bisexual. Thank you.
Crab wife. So yeah, the answers for Alex specifically, we really wanted her to have basically a narrower than a game like Mass Effect would kind of allow you to really 100% define who that character is. If I want to be a total jerk and push people off of roofs, or if I want to be a total sweetheart, you can kind of do that. But with Alex, we wanted to, at least in terms of her personality and how she would respond and react to things and things that she would say, be like a definable Alex characteristic, and the player gets to define within that range kind of how she would react in any particular situation. But on the bigger stuff, like who she would be sexually attracted to, who she would find interesting, who she would want to be with, because that's not what the game is focused about, we definitely wanted to let the player kind of define that, however they wanted or chose, or how they saw Alex. I think the only time it really comes up for Alex in particular is when they're playing Truth or Slap on the beach, and it was important for us to give her choices that could kind of be the full range that anyone would kind of be most comfortable kind of answering there. And for Ren and Nona and Clarissa, like those characters have a bit more of a defined orientation, only because the story kind of requires them to be interested in certain people at certain times. That doesn't mean that they're not interested in more people and more types of people, but at least in the game, we're only seeing that kind of sliver of their experience and what you can kind of push and pull at. So for Alex, it's definitely like an open implication. Like she can kind of be anything that you see her as, or how you play her as, however those hints may go. And for the other characters, it's a bit more defined, but we definitely didn't want to make too much noise about exactly who's who and who's into who.
All right, next question. Talk about Scientific and your experience with guiding them to make one of the best soundtracks ever. Yes, props to Andy. Yeah, we bear with me because we've told a version of this story before, but it is pretty insane and serendipitous how we came to working with Andy, and are just so fortunate to have him doing all of the scores for everything that we've done since the studio started. Andy is Scientific. So a friend of mine, this is over 15 years ago now, I was over at some random party and they gave me a CD. That's how long ago this is. It was a mixed CD, good God. And I remember just sticking it in my Jetta, 1998 Jetta CD player and driving around to this CD for, I don't know, a whole summer. And it was from some guy named Scientific American. And I was like, this guy's cool. And that was basically it. And so time goes on, that CD sat in the car for years. I eventually got rid of the car, got rid of the CD, got rid of all of it. Fast forward a few years, Adam and I are starting the studio, and the only thing that we knew about the kind of tone for the game was that we wanted it to feel like a John Carpenter soundtrack, or like how Boards of Canada do really multi-layered kind of analog synth electronic music and have a very kind of warbled, nostalgic feel for them. And I remembered that CD, it just kind of just jumped out of my head again. And there was like a petition going around in the industry at the time. And then I was about to sign the petition. And then I saw Andy's name like 5 people above where I was signing, and I looked at him, I'm like, this is weird. Do you remember that guy, Scientific American? I know nothing about him. I know my friend knew him. That's kind of it. I'm going to reach out to that friend and see if that person would be interested in working in games at all. I had no idea if he would. So after this 3-hour phone conversation back in whatever that was, 2015, we chatted for so long, and he just like got it. He got all of the inspirations for the story, where we were coming from. He understood that, like from a narrative and an art perspective, we wanted the world to feel nostalgic, but without being a period piece. That was really key. Like, we didn't want to go, this game takes place in 1987, or this is, summer of 93 or something like that. And it was much more like supposed to give you that feeling, but if you could be any age and it would resonate. And so within about a week, Andy sent us the first like demo track, and that is one of the key tracks in the game. I don't think it was the Beacon Beach track, but it's like he just found the audio signature for this thing right out of the gate. So Andy, props to Andy, because I think the process of finding the tone for the game was quite easy early on. I think that he got it and ran with it and made it, put his own mark on it. When I say John Carpenter on Boards of Canada, that was like a springboard, but Andy definitely put his own stamp on it. And so, yes, also shout out to our current OXENFREE radio playlist on if you go onto Spotify. It's pretty sweet because it's got all those tracks on there and a bunch of other stuff. But to continue with that, Andy, what also was really great working with him was that he did the score and the sound design for the game. And so all of that kind of bed of audio that you hear in the game, and the portal sound designs and everything that adds up to making that very strange, magical world that the sunken are kind of poking through, that was also Andy. And so now the music was able to kind of talk to that, and vice versa. It all had a very similar fingerprint across the board. Across the boards of Canada, high five. Sorry, Adam. And so I think the one thing that is was always so fun working with Andy on this is how much he wanted to break down and almost ruin his beautiful music. He's the guy who would, instead of going, I need this to have the perfect mix and be this pristine and level it this way, which is all very important too. But he's like, if we're going to achieve this sound, here's how we're going to make it happen. He would record something and then broadcast it and then pick it up on a ham radio and then record it to a reel-to-reel, and then like stomp on it in his basement and pull the tape out. So like that feel that you get in the game that is so gritty and grimy and warbly is all real. Like, a lot of it is not being done in any sort of software. It's stuff that he's using just analog recording techniques to make work really well. The last bit I would say there is just that he also, because he has really extensive experience in the commercial and film world, has brought to the table things like having character themes that can play and resonate and create an emotion that the player might not even be aware that we're hearing a few notes of Michael's theme at a particular scene, even if Michael's not in it, but it will make you kind of harken back to that moment or feel a particular way about an exchange that you had an hour earlier in the game. And so I think he really brought this kind of mix of being very game literate and film literate, which could then just pull heartstrings in different places. And he's a total joy to work with. And he likes to sneak lots of strange surprises into everything he does too. So that's fun too. It's fun to kind of dig through the tracks and find his secrets in there.
Yeah.
Next question.
What have you seen be the evolution of narrative games 5 years after the release of OXENFREE? Says E-Dog Lost. I mean, the last big one, at least that kind of that really blew me away in terms of just what you could really do, was Disco Elysium. And I'm sure there's a million others. I mean, 8 million games come out every day on Steam, so it's tough to keep up. But yeah, there's definitely been, and it's funny, at least for me, and I'm curious on what you kind of see, but I'm seeing kind of, it's either you kind of make a game which is all about the choice and the variability of choice, and like really digging into the micro options that you can have, and the game really keeps track of every little minute thing that you do, and you're really able to kind of tailor make and experience as much as the developers are kind of able to allow you to. And then there's kind of much more cinematic versions where it's all about letting you play a much more kind of tailored story, but there's very hard pivots left and right in terms of much bigger, much more like impactful, obviously going to change the story type of choices that you have every 3 to 5 minutes. Where it's much more about kind of charting the bigger stakes that you're putting in the ground, and less so about really defining exactly who you are as a character. So it's always interesting seeing kind of what people gravitate towards more, what kind of style of narrative game they're more interested in. Of course, there's also kind of almost a third category where it's less about choice at all and much more about just the experience, and it's all about role playing and just finding your way through a very, very tailored, very authored plot. So yeah, I mean, as we kind of continue to work on this art form and make games and make specifically narrative games, it'll be interesting how the technology continues to catch up to our goals, because I'm sure every dev out there would want to make things that like never kind of trunk back to a main story. You can just kind of keep making choices and choices till the cows come home, and they all kind of end in a very satisfactory way. And the only reason that we can't is because of time and cash. We just don't have the bandwidth to like put every single thing that we would want. But as games get as the tools get better and games kind of gets slightly easier and easier to make, and more quote unquote amateur people can make very fully functioned professional looking games with cheap kind of off the shelf tools. It'll be really fun and great just to see where people kind of continue to push this form, and what we really kind of want as an audience in terms of how much the game really kind of tailors to what we want to do, or if it is more about kind of experiencing just a really great story that we don't have a lot of kind of in and outs in. But yeah, I'm curious, Sean, if you've kind of seen any different trends.
I mean, I think the thing that excites me is that there is a higher degree of narrative focus in all games now, and then it's just about where the team aims the overlap of the character motivations and the beats of the story, and then the mechanics of the story. And so, yeah, like I think a lot of times people assume that Adam and I, when we get into a discussion about narrative in games, that we will be always pushing the hardest for, like Adam just mentioned, kind of the branchiest, most player-driven, player agency inside of a narrative. But at least for me, I look at a game like Last of Us 2 last year, and that game made me feel everything that I think they wanted me to feel in very like extreme ways, and I enjoyed it front to back. And there's very little room for player agency in the narrative in that game. So. Or the flip side is, like you play a great RPG and it spirals out and out and out. So I think it really just comes down to like, does a developer place a premium on players feeling something special under the hood with the character and going on a journey with them, or is that not that important to the story? I've really loved also seeing this is less about the design of a narrative game and more about just the scope of it. I really like the kind of 5 to 8 hour narrative experiences, because you can feel the entire 3 or 5 act structure inside of that game over the course of a couple of days, and that you don't lose the emotional connection to the character that you might otherwise lose over a 100-hour RPG or something, And so, whereas I love a big RPG as much as anybody, I also think that being able to have the devs, directors and teams hold my hand and pull me through this story over the course of 8 hours is great. Maybe it's also just because I have a little kid, but like, I mean, I like when a developer respects my time, and we try to do the same thing, vice versa. So it's just cool to see narrative become something that's so vital to games. Whereas, and I guess it's kind of been that way the last five years, but it's just, aiming more and more in that direction, which also means that we need to be on our toes and, continuing to try and come up with new ways to interact with narrative. Next question. Can you tell us about the recording sessions that allowed you to create the radio chatter you had to mix together to create the Sunken's speech? Oh, that is a good one because it's the most duct tape and a prayer recording sessions of all of our sessions. So our normal recording sessions were in a studio with our talent and, you know, Adam directing, and it like was a normal recording session. But for the Sunken, it was mostly, actually, if not all of us, the team, recording in the hallway on iPhones and then sending Andy all of that audio, and then Andy doing crazy audio magic to it. So chopping it up, adding all the different time, you know, pulling and pushing at the time, and giving it that grimy feel that you hear in the game. And I think, you know, the way that we kind of pitched it to Andy, and once again, he just took it and ran with it the right direction. The way we pitched it to him was like, think of it as a verbal ransom note. So like if you've seen, you know, old timey ransom notes, it would have cut up bits of a magazine, and each one would be in a different font and a different size. And so we said, oh, can the Sunken speak in a similar fashion? Because if the Sunken are stuck using other snippets of radio waves that are kind of hanging in the ether, and that's all they can do to communicate, let's make them speak in that fashion. So and you know, props to Adam for writing what could have felt just like a broken robot, but instead ended up becoming some of the most signature lines in the game because of that strange format. I don't know if you want to kind of talk to the writing process and recording for them.
Yeah, it was fun to write for the Ghost, because very early on we wanted you to have obviously conversations with these things, these beings, and to have it be not obviously human at the beginning, not obviously anything. You know, you didn't know exactly what you were really communicating with, just that it kind of wanted something. And we love the idea of, since you're using your radio to kind of tune into these things, since this game is all about communication and different forms of communication and getting things wrong and getting things right. We wanted, to sound like the Ghost. All they could do was just take from different radio sources, and kind of cobbled together, a lot like Sean said, a ransom note of things. So to write it, it was basically just trying to think of slightly off words that the Ghost would. So if the Ghost wanted to just ask you, could I get that cup of water? It would say, have ocean in mug, and just find things, and have the player kind of be able to be wrong in terms of what they're asking or what they're saying, and kind of respond in kind. It was fun to write, and then of course, fun to record, just because it's always great to have everyone in the studio kind of participate in a thing that everyone who plays the game will really experience and hear all at the exact same time in the exact same way. We all play the Ghost, and we just read these words, and then Andy stitched them. So it was a concept that thankfully came off, at least that's cool, at what was initially in our heads, which is rare.
Yes. Okay. We may have time for another question, or we may be hitting the wall. Let's see. Okay, we got one more. Here it comes. This is the best question. It's just, you love OXENFREE. Oh, okay. Lochai says, can you explain a bit more how you organize your storyboards, character personalities for OXENFREE? What did you write down first to get the ball rolling on creating Jonas? Everybody loves Jonas. Man, we should have said Jonas is our favorite character.
I know, you got a ton of points. For Jonas specifically, we had kind of gone over him already, where he was a bit of the River Phoenix and Stand By Me character. We wanted him to be a bit of a frightening, dangerous, potentially unknown, and then of course got mellowed out over time. For at least like my recollection for how the characters kind of came to be seen as, it was really fast. Heather kind of nailed it super quick. It was almost the first or second sketch that she did, and we're like, yep, that's Clarissa, that's Ren. You know, it was very fast. I think Alex had a couple of iterations where we just didn't know if she was going to have a hat or not, but other than that, it was pretty quick. And our one sentence, descriptors, I'm sure it would be exactly what you would imagine, kind of knowing those characters. Clarissa was going to be like the very, and again, at least initially, it was kind of how these things change. Clarissa, I think initially was supposed to be much more kind of a stuck up prom queen type of a person that had like a billion friends and was just not into having Alex around for the obvious reasons of the relationship with Michael, but also just because Alex wouldn't be the type of person that she would hang out with. Of course, that did change. I don't think anyone really would look at Clarissa and say that she's like a stuck-up prom queen type. Now she is kind of more fully formed, has her own kind of likes and dislikes, and can't be so easily pegged. And how Ren, you know, he started out as the goofball. He pretty much ended as the goofball too, but that was going to be his like one line thing. Is he's the guy that wants to know where the party's at all the time, even if ghosts are trying to jump into his form. He's going to be always wanting to keep it light, make a joke, make somebody laugh, but then still have his own stuff going on. But yeah, anything you want to add, Sean?
No, I mean, I think you talked about it earlier too, in a way that I think summed it up nicely, which is just how the entire cast is kind of born from things that can butt up against the player character and like against Alex and her issues. And so it is interesting because, yeah, when we say, okay, well, for Jonas in particular, we thought of him like a River Phoenix style character. It's not that we just said, well, we want a River Phoenix style character. It was more like, what is a companion for Alex that we want to have a lot of new mysteries to unpack with, but you can trust, and that can feel dangerous and interesting, and that can brush up against some other characters that we've already come up with. So it kind of just becomes this puzzle where then you finally start to go, oh, you know what? Now that these two are fairly well formed, we could have them be flirty. Or, oh, you know what? Now that this one we know is really awkward about a particular topic, we can have this character bring it up at the most inopportune time. And so it's pretty fun because they all really do feel like a big blob of clay in the beginning, and then they each get shaved away as you work on the other ones, you know. So Jonas only became this version of Jonas because of every other character in the cast, not because, oh, we just gotta, you know, hone in on the specific problems that Jonas has, if that makes sense. Okay, we got time, I think, maybe for one more question. How proud are you guys of Gregor? I can't pronounce it. Gregor. We're very proud of this. Can I take the beginning part of this, Adam? So it's Adam's joke in the game, and it was actually a bit of a surprise when it first made it in, and I was so happy. So this is while we were in the very early phases of working on the game. We would have to go, you know, fly to go meet with a potential publisher, or go, you know, you're just kind of moving around trying to sort things out while you're building the game and hoping the studio doesn't go out of business. And so we were on a flight out of Burbank Airport in California, just heading up north to the Bay Area for some day trip thing. And I have been seeing in this airport for years, just cracking up about this and telling Adam about it. And then I'm finally like, oh my God, we get to go past it. There was a war hero, and sorry for anybody who may be related to this person or loves everything that he did for our country, but his name was Major Dick Bong. And so there's this whole section at the Burbank Airport that has a glass display, and it's like Major Dick Bong. And then there's, it says like the ace of aces. And then, you know, Dick Bong is the best. Dick Bong did this. He killed all these people. He shot him out of the sky. Dick Bong, Dick Bong.
I love Dick Bong.
And we were just, you know, crying, laughing, like, this is ridiculous. Don't Google it, anybody. But I mean, actually, if you put Major in front of it, then you can Google it.
Yeah.
And then one day, just in a draft of the script, Adam added a Dick Bong joke, but his new name was Richard Harden. Yeah, do you want to talk about him?
Yeah, he's a great guy. But that's it. Yeah, I mean, that is the exact story. We would laugh at this statue every time we would fly. And I was like, what am I going to name this communications tower? And there are a bunch of people give him something to laugh at, and that was kind of a big thing, not to ruin the what should be a light, quick answer to this. But it's become an important part of the game, just having just silly jokes and silly things for these teenagers to kind of point out and laugh at and get amused by, just to keep the tone light and keep the tone realistic. I mean, if you were on that island and horrifying things were happening, people make jokes. I mean, it's just something you do in foxholes. So it was an important part of the game just to make sure that they still felt like real little characters who would laugh at a silly name. But that's definitely the origin, though.
I think it was like, I mean, it's going to sound ridiculous, but I think it was an important milestone for the game because everything up until then was very grief simulatory. And we had said, you know, since starting the studio, we've always said like that the games have to have multiple overlapping tones if they're going to feel real. We're never going to be overly bleak, or we're never going to go all in on one style over another. And yeah, once the Dick Harden joke came in, it was like, oh yeah, here we go.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce. Okay, well, we are up against time. So, I mean, first of all, yeah, I'm sorry we weren't able to get through a lot more of the questions because there are many awesome questions showing up in the chat. But like, again, I don't know, it just feels so surreal, and we're so fortunate that you guys are out there and playing the game and enjoying the game and that it's resonated with you. I think it's just something that we, you know, when we were making it, we just wanted to get something out that we thought was special to us, and hopefully it would resonate with a few other people. And we're like half a decade later, which sounds bonkers to me, talking about it with people who want to hear about it. So that's it just feels incredible. And thank you to everybody in the community for digging the game. I think, yeah, just some quick closing words. Yeah, if there's if there's anything that you're not following on social media of us, please do start to follow it. We are on Twitter at Night Schoolers, NIGHTSCHOOLERS. On Instagram, we are at Night School Studio. If you want to rewatch this stream because there was anything particularly interesting in it, we will be posting that on our YouTube channel. And Adam, any other closing words?
Just thanks for watching and listening to me ramble and Sean give interesting, cogent answers.
Exact opposite.
Well, yeah, thanks
also,
for watching.
Adam, your baby didn't even cry ever. I didn't hear any babies. You guys, there's a baby right out of the frame that we wish you could see.
Behind, that's the bathroom. There's a door there with a baby in it. And 2 seconds before we got on the stream, the cat was peeing in the hallway. The dogs were pooping in Sean's place. There was a lot of chaos. We made it. It happened.
Really made it. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, and hope you have a great week. Bye.